as far as race relations in the United States, there's always been tension between black and white people. Now, it stems from slavery and the false doctrine of the white man's burden, but do you think that it's perpetuated through a reluctance to share power with a group viewed as inferior?
Well, first of all, black isn't a race, it's a color. It's a placeholder. And that idea of race is really just a social construct to divide and make establishing social hierarchies that much easier. But for the black community, it's a reminder that something's been taken that they'll likely never recover. I mean, any average white person can give you a general rundown of their heritage, right? Whether they're German, Italian, Irish, so on and so forth. But on average, the most that the former can do is say, I'm not black, I'm African American, in a frail attempt at preserving, a few fragments of the dignity that haven't been stolen. But to answer your question, I believe there is reluctance, but there's a greater sense of entitlement. And that's actually something that's been brought to my attention on several occasions. I've heard comments about how some older white people, how older white people carry themselves when they visit businesses run by people of color. And to be clear, it's not all white people, but for one reason or another, you get a few that just walk in like they own the place. They'll have this air of authority, and it just doesn't sit right with some people. But the thing is, I don't think it's something they're taught as children, more like it's something they learn from observation when they're growing up.
So, are you saying that this behavior is more often than not subconscious rather than something done out of malice?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but okay, this actually reminds me of this report from NPR. I think it's about this school in New York City. It's majority black, and they did this initiative to raise funds, and they turned to the community to do so. And in return, they'd provide programs, classes, so on and so forth. And on the surface, it seems fine, but I heard this woman of non-color talk about this initiative, and she seemed so out of touch. It was a woman of non-color and a child of non-color. She seemed so out of touch with what she was talking about. When she had a conversation with a Hispanic woman, she started talking about these French vacations she went on. She talked about how important it is to be bilingual and how proud she was. This woman of non-color was saying how happy she was that this school was doing this bilingual initiative. It seems like she completely discounted the fact, like she was completely unaware of the fact, didn't even think about the fact that the woman she was talking to was bilingual.
Well, it feels like this disconnect is common in American society because, we speak past one another because we're more interested in being heard rather than hearing what someone with, a different point of view and unique experiences has to share.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. The child of non-color in this report, he seemed to be under the impression that he and his friends would be going to this school in order to improve its overall academic performance. Like somehow he was under the impression that these children were lazy or like slept in class and needed outside academic help, even though the school was doing fine scholastically. Which makes you wonder, where does this child get this sort of impression from in the first place? Because chances are his parents aren't teaching these things to him directly. So that means he picks up on the body language, attitudes, even just glib, offhand remarks that his parents make. He's analyzing them on a subconscious level to later be processed as part of this child's personality.
So, what exactly is being processed by African American children in these exact situations?
It's a really good question, but I think it's too narrow. Because the reality is that black children in America aren't the only ones facing this kind of treatment. Many of their African ancestors lived in a lush paradise, the same one that European explorers saw and convinced the rest of the world that its inhabitants were uncivilized, right? The same paradise that Europeans today, those of European descent, go to on safaris for vacation and marvel at the abundance of natural wonders and resources that are there. Because that's how you get what you really want at the end of the day. By ignoring the value of whatever it is you desire and getting the other person to believe that their possessions have no value. Like if I trade someone a lump of coal for a diamond, I can tell them all the benefits that this lump of coal will bring them. Like, it'll keep you warm and it'll help you cook your food. In the same breath, discount the true value of this diamond as nothing more than a shiny rock. Except, this was done on a continental scale, with rich Africans and Europeans swapping lifestyles.
Okay, and with that said, what does the future hold for race relations in this country?
Okay, I know a lot of people won't want to hear this, but it doesn't really matter. When a black man takes a knee to make a stand, the world turns their back. But when a black man lays down and dies, all of a sudden the whole world wants to stand up, right? In my opinion, Derek Chauvin is the physical representation of the relationship between so many white and black people in this country. When one person says Black Lives Matter, for someone else to stand up and say all lives matter is the equivalent of them turning their back, putting their hands in their pockets while their knee is still on their throat, right? If all lives really did matter, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But apparently, some lives matter more than others, and those are the ones who have the luxury of looking the other way. Yet regardless of whether they're oblivious of the impact their actions have on a day-to-day basis, the fact remains that damage is being done.
Okay. And what about people who say that religion is the answer to these problems?
I'd have to respectfully disagree. I don't have a problem with any religion, but I will say that anyone promoting Christianity as the solution for racism might need to check again. Especially when so many so-called Christians would go to church on Sunday morning, then wake up early Monday morning to go beat their slaves. You know what I mean? Or when they would go to church on Sunday and then Monday night, slip on a white hood and burn crosses in their black neighbors' yards, calling it the light of Christ. And what really turns my stomach is black religious leaders disparaging the leaders of groups like Black Lives Matter. These people made choices in their lives that others who've joined couldn't care less about, whether it's political doctrine or personal religious views. The reason people join is because they're tired of being treated like animals. They're tired of being murdered by those sworn to protect them. So if you tell them that a trained Marxist just formed a group that might help their child grow up in a world where they don't have to fear police brutality, and you don't give them a better alternative, why would they turn that down? It doesn't mean that they believe in the same things this group does. It just means they're tired of being tired. And even more, if you're really a Christian, then you know God has performed countless miracles using imperfect people. So why would you try and discount or undermine what someone else is doing to help them and their families?